Hey, everybody on Zoom and YouTube Live. We'll get started here in about 30 seconds. Just want to welcome everybody, and we'll get started here soon.
Hey, P, thanks for joining us. Hope all is well up in the Atlantic District. Alex Polici, awesome you can make it. Brad Johnson, thanks for being here. Hope all is well in Michigan. Darren Campbell, thanks for making it all the way from Seattle. Coach Lasan, 3 weeks in a row. You're on fire, buddy. Thanks for being here. Eric Woodbeck, thanks for coming from North Dakota. Jason Power, thanks for joining us from St. Louis. Kenny Roush, thanks for supporting Goalie Nation this week. Appreciate it. Kevin McLaughlin, same to you. Always honorary members of Goalie Nation. Neil Conway, thanks for joining us from Cleveland, Ohio today. Stephanie Yates, thanks for being here from beautiful Southern California. Hope the weather's nice. Zach Cantrell in God's country in Montana. Thanks for being here. So we'll have to see if any Alaskans join for you here.
I know. Hopefully they hop on.
I bet we got a bunch. Abby Lee, thanks for joining us.
Steve, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to welcome everybody to the USA Hockey webinar series presented by Pure Hockey and BioSteel. We got a great group of presenters here today. Steve Thompson, our ADM manager for goaltending, is back on. So we're excited to have him back. And then the group for Jeremy Swayman, who won the Mike Richter Award. But Steve, this is all yours, and the show is yours, and have fun.
Thanks, Dave. And everybody, thanks for joining us today. We got a really cool talk. As I'm sure everyone's aware through the different social media channels that we've been pushing this out, Jeremy Swayman was the recipient of the Mike Richter Award this season. And we were really excited to get him on. And as we started talking with Jeremy more and more about his process and the success that he's had, we really felt it was important to bring on his whole development team. And what we want to highlight today is all the different parts that go into success in hockey, and specifically with goaltending. One of the challenges we have is that very few play the position that we're in. And so we want to highlight today how a team was able to really work within the goaltending structure, and everybody has a different role. And so everybody, thanks for joining us today. We have the staff from Maine, which includes Red Gendron, the head coach, Alfie Michaud, the assistant coach, Matt Murray, the director of sports conditioning, which is the strength conditioning coach for the team, and then Jeremy Swayman, who is the starting goalie. And thanks, guys, for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
What I want to start today is just we're really lucky in the richness of the hockey background, and we're going to jump into Jeremy's success and how everyone played a role within that. But I really wanted to start by just the success that everybody's had through their time in hockey. And so Red, specifically, starting with you, you've been coaching for 23 years now, and a mix between pro and college hockey. Looks like news to you.
And a little longer than that, but
longer for sure.
And, it looks like a national championship in 1993 with the first national championship that Maine had, which must have been a pretty exciting time. And then a Stanley Cup championship in 1995 with the New Jersey Devils. So we'll definitely love to hit on some of those things today.
yeah, well, I've been fortunate, but I have been coaching a little longer than that. It's like 41 years complete, and been at just about every level, and I have done a lot of work for USA Hockey earlier in my career. I had the honor to be an assistant coach on 3 different national junior teams, and was heavily involved in the coaching education program for many years. I believe it or not, I was once coaching education director in the New England district. So I've been doing this for a long time, and it's great to be at Maine again, second time. So I'm delighted to be here with all of you guys today and to talk about Jeremy Swayman and all of the successes that he's had.
Awesome, thank you. And Alfie, another Maine roots here, part of the national championship in 1999, which was the second national championship that Maine's had. And then from there, I went on to a 13-year pro career and had the opportunity to play with the Vancouver Canucks as a goaltender too. So pretty neat to have you on board. And I'm sure for you, similar, pretty cool homecoming to come back and coach at your alma mater now.
Sure, it's obviously an honor. That's Red will say it too. It's a place that probably got us started, and definitely owe a lot to Maine. Everything. My wife, my kids are Mainers. That propelled me to pro hockey, which was obviously every kid's dream. I'm ecstatic to be back and be a part of the staff, and thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. And then Matt, this is your 6th year now as a director of sports performance. And, when we originally were talking with Red and Alfie and Sway about putting this together, your name got brought up so many times about how just integral your role is on the team's success and the individual's athlete's success. And so we kind of last second, we're like, no, we got to get Matt on here. I mean, we can't talk about development without having him here with how big of a, part of the puzzle you are. So thanks for being here. And I'm excited to share with the group what you do for the team.
Yeah, of course. Looking forward to it.
And then last but not least, why we all are here today is Sway. Thanks for being here. Very successful junior season with Hobart Baker finalist, Hockey East Player of the Year, the Walter Brown recipient for the Best American Player in New England, and then the Mike Richter Award for the top goaltender in all of college hockey. So pretty exciting season for you, and appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. So one thing I wanted to start with, yeah, you bet. I don't know how the quality is all the way up in Alaska. We're pulling some miles here.
A little glitchy.
So I wanted to start today just by talking about the rich history of goaltending in Maine. And when you think of successful NHL goaltenders that played college hockey, there's just so many that played for Maine. To name a few, Ben Bishop, Scott Darling, Garth Snow, Mike Dunham, Alfie Michaud, who we have on, Jimmy Howard, Scott King, Matt DeJuice, and Mike Morrison. And I know that there's a handful more.
Matt Del Judas, but the juice is his nickname. So yeah, you're right, but there have been a lot of great goalies at Maine, and probably the guy, besides the efforts of those athletes themselves, the guy who played the most integral role, and he was Alfie's coach too, is the great Grant Stanbrook, who's lives in Naples, Florida now. He's retired, but when you think about the excellence of Maine hockey, the excellence of the goaltenders that we've had here, he's certainly a name that immediately comes to mind. He coached most all of the goalies in the early era, and now we're pretty fortunate to have one of his disciples in Alfie to continue with the development of our goaltenders here at the University of Maine.
Yeah, it's really cool that this is kind of full circle. I know that my first year coaching, I was working under Matt Thomas at University of Alaska, and he's spent some time with Maine, and he just kept raving about Grant Stanbrook. You've got to meet this guy. And I had the opportunity my second year coaching to meet him in Naples, and it just blew my mind to hear the way that he viewed the position. And then even more important to me at the time was he wasn't a goalie. I assumed that this goalie guru that I kept hearing about would have had this legendary goaltending career. And then as I'm speaking to him, he's like, oh, I was a forward at Duluth. And I was like, you're the goalie guru. Like you weren't a goalie. And so Alfie, do you mind touching on just, what Grant brought and still brings? Cause it sounds like he's still very involved with reaching out and asking questions and following all of his main goalies.
Yeah, there's no question. I got a text from him today because I shot him the link. So he was wondering how it all works. So yeah, he's just, what makes Grant really special is he's just such a great people person. He makes you feel like you're the most special person out there. We laugh about it, us guys that have played for him. For me, I always felt like I was Grant's favorite, but I'm sure Jimmy Montgomery thought he's his favorite, and Paul Correa and Steve Curry and all those guys. And that's what he does really well, is he connects with you on a personal level. And then he's a guy that just studied the position as a player. If he was going to do this, we just talked about it last week when he was at Dartmouth. He said he felt like he failed his goalie, and he didn't prepare him well enough. So Grant put on the equipment and start asking goalie questions and jumped in the net and try to figure out angles and really start learning the position. And he's been everywhere trying to learn the position. So he said he'd never let that happen again, where his goalie wasn't going to be prepared. And he's done a lot of work, and he's obviously a great mentor to a lot of us that have come through this program. And he's a guy I talk to weekly, and we just, lots of times it's just a talk, but it always goes back. We end up talking goaltending on any given night when hockey season is going on. At 10 o'clock, I'm probably going to get a phone call because Howie or Ben Bishop or somebody let in a goal that he didn't like, and he's going to want to talk about it and dissect it. And that's where I got to look at my phone and decide whether I'm going to pick it up, because if you're picking it up, anybody that knows Grant, it's going to be probably an hour. So, but he's just a wealth of knowledge. He's an unbelievable man, and he's a big part of my life. There's no question.
That's awesome. And so, Sway, as we talk about all these, the history of Maine and the success that goaltenders have had, and where were you on this path to choosing to go to Maine when you had these options to choose schools, and you're kind of back in 3 years ago now?
Yeah, that's a great question. That was a big factor for me, and I knew I wanted to go to a place where goaltending was a priority in the coach's eyes, and the development of goalies and the success of goalies was obviously relevant. So I looked in the history box, and obviously there's some great names that are still playing. And after I had my first conversation with Alf, my visit, I knew that this was going to be a special place for me. And I actually had the great opportunity to meet Grant Sandbrook and also work with him as well. My freshman year, I remember we were skating in the summer, and there was no coaches out there, and there was this old guy just sitting up in the stands watching. I was like, all right, he's just probably a loyal Maine fan. And he came down to the ice after and just started giving me all these tips. And I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. And he didn't tell me his name either. And he was just this random guy. And I just remember I was like taking all this stuff to heart, because I was like this eager freshman, super excited to play. And I don't know, this guy knows hockey, and he just started talking to me. And next thing I know, I go up to the office, and Shannon, who's working there, so front office lady, she goes, yeah, that was Grant Sandbrook. And I was like, oh, who's that? And she just told me all the history, and she said, yeah, if he tells you something, you better listen no matter what he says. And right from then and there, that's when our relationship really started and took off. And I got to learn so much from him as well as Alf.
That's awesome. That's got to be pretty cool to be a part of that fraternity now, with just the great goalie, alums, and then the coaches, and that whole history, just to share that with that group is pretty special.
Absolutely.
Red and Alfie, do you mind walking back to recruiting Jeremy and, getting him on the team, and what you saw in him and where you thought he could go?
Yeah, well, we got a tip about Jeremy. We were looking for a goalie, and we got a tip on him. And the first time any of us went out to see him play, it was pretty clear that he had extraordinary athleticism. I'd had the good fortune to be at UMass, working there with Tu Cahoon when we had John Quick. And immediately I could see the lateral mobility and the puck tracking skills that we would normally, we've become accustomed to seeing from somebody like John Quick. So that was pretty clear. And as soon as we met Jeremy, it became very obvious that this guy wanted to be the best. And when you, in recruiting, if you can find athletes or players to recruit who love the game as much as you do as a coach or more, then they're going to do the work. And when it gets difficult, they're not going to run and hide from the work. They're not going to point fingers. They're going to dig in and get after it. So we knew he was athletic, and we also had a pretty good sense right away from talking to him. And of course, we end up doing a whole bunch of homework beyond that. as every college staff does. But it was pretty clear early on that he was the kind of guy we'd want to bring into our program.
Alfie, do you remember kind of from a goalie specific, being able to see him and some of his technical skills, where you were at on Jeremy as he was showing up as a freshman for you?
Yeah, I was during the recruiting process, I was a volunteer goalie guy. So obviously I wasn't on the road. Ben and I talked at length about what we liked, what I liked in a goaltender. And as Red just said, the athleticism is a big thing. And finding a great kid first and foremost, that's the biggest thing, just bringing in a great individual that's willing to work. So we talked about that. I know Ben and Jay Leach went out on the road, and very seldom do you get two guys, at least with us, that go to a same game. And I think, Ben would probably be able to better explain it, but Ben went on one end of the net, and Jay was on the other, and they watched. And obviously Ben and I talked at length about what we're trying to look for. And I watched him on video, and we just, talked about it. And then obviously on his visit, him and I got to talk goalie. And obviously talking to him about the great history and what Maine hockey has meant to me as a person, as a goaltender, and hoping to pass that knowledge that I learned along the way on to him. And and he liked it, and I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit about what Ben and Jay talked to him about on his trip, which is kind of cool too.
Yeah. So to that point, Jay, how was that on your end, the recruiting process?
The recruiting process was pretty cool. I just remember, it was my first real week of like USHL hockey. It was at the Fall Classic, and it was highly touted. Everyone kind of told me going into it, there's going to be the most scouts you've ever played in front of your life. And I just didn't really look at that as pressure. I just looked at it as an opportunity, to showcase my talents, because I really never got any. I knew I wanted to play college hockey from a young age, so that was a really big priority of mine. And, I never got the exposure I did until I was in the USHL. And so I knew that weekend was going to be a good place to, to show my talents. And I was fortunate. I got to talk to quite a few teams, and then University of Maine came in. And I think the biggest thing that separated them from any other team was just how much they wanted to get to know me as a person and how much they wanted to improve me as a person. And they said that flat out. They said, we know your hockey abilities. We know your, we know what you're capable of. And I didn't even know what I was capable of. It's just like there was this amazing, belief and trust in me. And I thought that was pretty special to give me that confidence, as this newly recruit going into the recruiting process. But it was funny. I mean, the conversation it wasn't even about hockey really. It was about the great hiking trails in the University of Maine and all the great fishing spots around Orono, because I don't know if a lot of people know, but I'm a big nature guy. I love being outdoors, growing up in Alaska, obviously. And I just thought that struck home for me. And, again, Coach Guite and Jay Leach did a great job. They kept tabs on me throughout the year. And I just knew that this was going to be a special place. And on my visit, seeing campus and seeing all the great coaching staff and really getting to know them on a personal level right away, I just knew that this was going to be a special place for me. And it was a great decision.
That's awesome. And it reminds me a lot of what we talked about as we were preparing for this over the last week. You bring up the staff wanting to get to know you as a person, and it was less about hockey and it was more about who you are. And Red, that really strikes a chord, just hearing you discuss the way that you structure your staff so that you have the opportunity to get to know Jeremy better. Do you mind touching on kind of the structure that you have and your role with Jeremy?
Well, first off, I leave all things goalie to Alfie. I can speak English, French, a little bit of Russian, but I'm not sure I speak goalie. So the more I stay out of it, the better off we are. And so when it comes down to everything that happens in terms of Jeremy's development on the ice, I stay out of it. When it comes to Jeremy's development off ice in the weight room, that's Matt Murray's job. And so what that allows me to do is, because I have 100% trust in the people that we have in our program, working within our program, our staff. It allows me to have conversations with Jeremy that are a little bit broader, like what's your role on the team as a leader? What's your role on the team as a teammate? What are you thinking about in this situation? And have you ever given any thought to this or that? And there are certain things in every program, every head coach has certain things that they believe in as foundational to their program. Things that we believe in are things like trust and respect and humility. And so a lot of my conversations with Jeremy dealt with those kinds of things and questions about, because I've had the good fortune to visit Anchorage, Alaska on more than one occasion. We could begin by talking about the Chugach Mountains or Turnagain Sound, or different things, moose coming down out of the Chugach Range in the morning, foraging for food, things that I had an opportunity to experience through my visits to Anchorage. And so we were able to develop a relationship, in that way. And for me, the only thing I had to pay attention to all the time were, as far as his hockey's concerned, was just his work habits. And, and basically that was never an issue for Jeremy. So, I didn't have to become Coach Orangutan to the best of my recollection when it came to Jeremy. Most days when I was dealing with him, I was Coach Feelgood, which is a nice thing. Coach Feelgood's better than Coach Orangutan.
That's awesome. And I just think it's such a great message for all of our coaches to hear, because there are so many coaches out there that don't have that goaltending background and often feel a little handcuffed to help their goalies out. But there's so much more that goes into coaching than the X and O's of the crease movement and the X and O's of the RVH. And I just think this is a great example of the coach still coaching the athletes. There's so many different ways to do it, through character, through teamwork, through all these different things that we know develop great athletes. And so for the coaches out there listening, if you happen to be one of those coaches that might not want to talk details of the goalie tactical skills, rely on what you do know about the game, or about the locker room, or about teamwork, and you can still coach that athlete.
I don't think there's any question about it. When I think the toughest part is, I suspect there'll be youth hockey coaches on this platform here today, and there are no easy answers, but there's always a way. And so if you can't find somebody, at the end of the day, let's make no mistake about it, Jeremy Swayman's had the success he's had because, first and foremost, he can stop a puck. You know what I mean? So you can talk about foundational principles and work habits and things like that. His skills have to be developed. His athleticism has to be developed. His fitness has to be developed. And coaches, if they can't do those things, they need to help the athletes find people that can. Or as was the case, as Alfie pointed out with Grant Stanbrook, there weren't a lot of goalie guys back in the day when Grant taught himself about the position. And so he took it upon himself to learn. And I've heard of several other outstanding coaches who taught themselves the fundamentals of the position so that they could help young goalies be successful. So bottom line is, you got a job to do, figure out a way to get it done. For me, it's easy. I just hire these guys and leave them alone.
I know how modest you're being right now after talking to those guys. I really appreciate it. Matt, I'd like to jump in with you here.
Sure.
Your journey with Jeremy, he's coming in soaking wet, maybe 100 pounds long and lanky. And, what was that journey like for you with him coming to Maine?
Yeah, I'll never forget. We bring our freshmen in for about a month. It's usually a good time for them to take a couple classes, get acclimated. And I get a text from this Anchorage, Alaska number going, "Hey, do we work out? Are we working out during this time?" And I go, "Well, yeah, Jeremy, it's optional. You don't have to make it mandatory." He's like, "Oh, I didn't think we were working out this entire time." So, he calls me freaking out, thinking he's going to be late for a workout, right? But right away, day one, we just hit it off. I think he knew that I played goalie. Didn't play at a very high level, was only a club goaltender, but, like kind of you were alluding to, I think, you know, I understand the kind of things he's going through on a day-to-day basis, right? You know, how he feels in the crease, how he feels after a game, after a practice, and kind of coupled with my knowledge and what I do for the team, it was very easy for me to develop that relationship with him. Because I really think that that's kind of the number one thing that I strive for with our athletes. Really develop that relationship, get to know them on a personal level. And then I can kind of use my knowledge and my skills to help that athlete kind of increase his or her weaknesses and strengths.
It sounded like a big part of this process for you with Jay and how much volume of hockey he was playing was actually more probably the recovery and
yeah,
you know, keeping him out of the gym at times instead of work harder.
And that's the beautiful part about kind of what we do here at Maine. We monitor our athletes a lot with a lot of various forms of technology, varying from heart rate monitors to stuff they're doing in the weight room, how high they're jumping. So I had a pretty good profile on Jeremy when he first came in. And I kind of knew right away. I mean, he just kind of had that it factor right in the gym. Everything looked good, right? I wasn't really teaching him a lot of brand new things, right? You know, we're cleaning up techniques on, you know, squats and main lifts and stuff like that. But I mean, he just really thrived in that environment. So he made my job very easy. But once we kind of knew right away that this kid, he was going to play a lot of games for us, right? And my job is, you know, I don't necessarily care how much Jeremy lifts in terms of weight. You know, I care how available he is throughout his time in Maine, right? It doesn't really mean much to the team or to him individually if, you know, he's squatting a lot of weight, but he can't play a game because he's hurt. So using that and, you know, talking with our coaching staff on a day-to-day basis, talking with Jeremy on a day-to-day basis, you know, we were able to work with Alfie and design, you know, if we knew we had an easy practice day, okay, Alf, hey, what do you think about a goalie session today, right? And 9 times out of 10, Alfie already had it planned. So to have that communication and that trust amongst our staff, it really, really helped in our communication and our development of Jeremy over the last 3 years.
And Alfie, how did that play a role for you? You setting up goalie skates and just managing Jeremy through the practice, through the communication you had with Matt?
Yeah, you know, you obviously, you know, you set your week up how we want to do it. You know, we knew days that we would like to get goalie sessions in. And obviously, you know, I talked to Red, you know, things that possibly we might need as a staff, you know, as myself, Red and Ben, we'd talk about how the week's going to go, the themes that we want leading up to an opponent. And, you know, there's some teams that do things a little bit different. So, you know, that was all based into first practice time, you know, and then deciding, you know, if it was going to be a forecheck special team kind of day that was going to be a little light on the goalies, then we, you know, sit down with Matt and we talk about, you know, where we want his training load. And it could be a morning where Jeremy knew there were some mornings we were going to have as our goalie skate was going to be 45 minutes and it was going to be a tough one. You know, he knew if he was on the ice by himself, it was a real going to be a good hard 45-minute work time. And that was probably his training load for the day, you know, because come practice time, you know, we probably have a few flow drills and then we got to jump into our meat and potatoes of practice when it came to our stuff where a goaltender just wasn't going to get enough. So we knew going in, you know, how that week was going to play out in that sense and looking at training loads, obviously talking to Matt Murray, you know, on days we knew it was going to be a really tough day for a goalie. Well, you know, maybe we didn't have a goalie skate or it was going to be a 20-30 minute, very pro-like, and when it comes to just detail, you know, maybe he's just down his butterfly, he's working on his stick. So we're not burning him in the goalie skate, but he's getting good work. And then come practice time, then it's getting after it and knowing. So, you know, it's about Friday and Saturday for us, that performance on Friday and Saturday. So we're working up all week, trying to, you know, maximize it so that come Friday night, he's as fresh and ready to go. And then the hope is with all the work we put in through the week, he recovers quick and then he does it all over again on Saturday. So we thought we worked out a pretty good formula. Like I said, right from Red's great. You know, we talk in the morning on stuff and there might be a drill that we think we need in there because somebody's going to give a lot of traffic. So, you know, Red throws in a real high traffic drill, you know, to finish. And so there's a lot of back and forth, you know, and I'm sure it's like that for a lot of clubs.
That's fantastic. And Jeremy, now for you, it's, you're coming into school each year knowing, I'm simplifying everyone's roles just for the sake of the call today, but you've got a head coach that's really helping build character and leadership. You've got a strength coach that is going to keep you healthy and safe and strong. And you've got a goalie coach that's going to keep you sharp on the technical side. How does that play into you, preparing and being able to develop the way you have over 3 years at Maine?
Sounds like a pretty good formula to me, huh? I mean, it's just, you named it. And, Red's modest. To be honest, this doesn't happen without him and his leadership and obviously his experience. So he's the gatekeeper for this whole program to work. And for him to have the communication he does with Guite, Alf, and Matt, that this doesn't happen. And in my eyes, everyone's a goalie coach to me, right? They might say they're not, but everyone's a goalie coach to me, no matter what, because they're focusing on each player's development. And in my opinion, obviously stands the goalie's development. And so they're in the war room, they're planning out practices that are going to help me perform on Friday and Saturday night. And the practices are so detailed that I'll know, they're going to do different drills and different drive drills based on the team we're playing strengths. And it's just that whole week of preparation is based on, the team we're playing. And to me, that's everything. So, I would not have had nearly the success I did without the coaching staff and the teammates I had throughout my 3 years here. And, it's just like you said, I had every single opportunity to succeed here because of these great coaches I've had. And I couldn't be more fortunate to be a Black Bear.
That's great. And talk us a little bit through the mentality you have coming in, your freshman year, first year in Hockey East, and, maybe some of the struggles you went through, and then obviously the success you had later. Just, how did you manage all of that coming in really to an unknown?
I lost you there for a second, but I heard most of it, I think. So I want to rephrase that one.
Yeah, just take us through your journey of the 3 years on the mental side of the game. That's, obviously a big part of goaltending is being able to manage the stress and the pressure and all that. And, certainly I'm sure you went through some tough times over the 3 years and some great times over the 3 years. And how did you manage that in Hockey East being such a competitive league?
Well, you can't buy experience. Red has a great line. He says you can't go to Target and buy experience, and that's the truth. And I wouldn't be anywhere I am now without the highs and lows I had at Maine and the summers I had back home. So it's just all based on experience. And these guys gave me the opportunity to gain that experience every day. And of course, the great professors as well. I was in school every day too, so I had to manage a workload. And it's amazing how many people go into my daily life as a college hockey player. And it's just all these unknown people that really should get more credit than they deserve. And, it's a team game in every aspect of it. And that goes, to my roommates and to obviously my teammates and everyone involved in the university. So I don't know. I just felt that I knew I was in a safe place. I knew I was in a place where I wanted to be. I was happy to be there, and people around me were just as happy to be there too. And going to the rink every day was a fun and enjoyable experience, no matter what happened the day before. And we have great mentors. I know Doc Wally, who's our sports psychologist. I had a great relationship with him, and that he helped me big time in my mental game, obviously along with Alf too, and all the coaches. But, I think the mental game for me was just really focusing on simplifying things. Going in as a freshman, I had all these big dreams and aspirations, which is good, but I needed someone to kind of mentor me to focus on the moment rather than the outcome and focus on the journey. And I just remember, just so focused and relying. Actually, Grant Stanbrook helped me one time. I was talking to him and I said, I'm focusing on Thursday because that's got to be my best practice of the week because I'm playing Friday night. He said, Sway, you're not going to be good Thursday. You're not going to be good Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday if all you focus on is Thursday practice. And you just got to focus on, that where your 2 feet are at any given moment. And just really simplifying things for myself, obviously, gave me a lot of confidence and success.
One thing we didn't get a chance to talk about yet was you had the opportunity to represent the U.S. in the World Juniors. And do you mind talking a little bit about, what Red was talking to you about prior to joining the team and how that experience prepared you for some of the later successes you had?
Yeah, that was a great experience. never knew that would happen because I did a lot of the USA Pacific District camps and made it to national camp, I think 1 or 2 years, but never made any noise. And I didn't get to go to any overseas tournaments. So I really thought I was kind of out of the picture with the USA scene for the 98 birth year. And so getting the opportunity to represent USA hockey at World Juniors, that was an incredible, honor. And being able to go there and represent my country for the first time, that's something I'll never forget. And I remember meeting the guys there. Before Red did have a conversation with me, and he knew what I was going into because he's been through it, and I really didn't. I didn't know any of these guys going in, all these huge names, in college hockey and stuff. And he just said, Sway, if you go there and show what you can do and not tell anyone what you can do, the guys will love you for that and they'll play for you. And that really struck a chord with me because he was completely right. I didn't have to say anything to get these guys to like me. I just had to do my role, play my role, and be the best teammate I could possibly be, and make sure that I'm battling just as hard for them as they would for me. And that's exactly what happened. And I ended up making some lifelong relationships out of that team. And I just remember being in that locker room, all these guys that had no reason to be humble whatsoever because they're amazing players, that every one of them was just completely humble and just great guys. And being a part of that culture really helped me, I think, mature very fast. Just being around them for a month or two, I learned so much. And again, just being able to put on that sweater with those, I think, 26, 27 guys, I'll never forget that.
That's great. And that was actually a question from one of our audience members, which I thought was really neat. And so for everyone that is in the chat, please, if you have any questions throughout this on any topics at all, feel free to throw those in the chat. Red, we've got another great question for you, and it's about the experience you do have in coaching at all different levels and over different generations as well. And the question is, what's the difference in working with this generation of athletes as compared to athletes 20 years ago?
Well, I think I honestly believe that young hockey players aren't any different than maybe I was back around the end of the Civil War when I started. But what I do think is they come prepared differently than perhaps we were, and I think they require, or if you want to get the most out of them, I think you have to spend more time with them on things that don't have anything to do with hockey. We call it relationship building. And to be perfectly honest, that's not the way I grew up. It's not the way I started in coaching. It used to be that the paradigm was, players don't talk to the coach. The coach is the boss, and you don't share much about how you feel and whatnot, perhaps out of fear to show any weakness. And the coaches were less empathetic about what it was like to be a player. It was sort of like we grew up and we figured things out. Some of us, not all of us, but supposedly we were supposed to figure it out on our own. And that's not ideal in the modern world. I don't think it works anymore. So on a personal level, I've really tried to make changes. In the end, I haven't changed. I've always wanted the best for our teams, whatever teams I've been associated with, or each of our individual players. But I've had to come to realize that there's a different way to get there, and you have to adapt to that different way to get there. And at the same time, it's still pretty easy to maintain the lines between the coach and the player. When we have discussions with the team, we ask their opinion about certain things, but in the end, whatever decisions have to be made, I'm the one responsible for making the final decision. But in the old days, we didn't tend to consult the players very much about what was decided. And I think that's a big change today. And quite frankly, it's a change for the better. those kinds of relationships that you build and whatnot. When times get difficult, because they always do, there are always lulls in a season when your team's not playing well and whatnot. It's the strength of those bonds that help you overcome those challenges more quickly, I think.
Do you have any tips for those coaches? Change is so hard, and we see it so often that when, how resistant people can be to change. Was there anything that you did to try and force yourself into this next generation of coaching and not be latched on to, well, this is the way I've always done things?
Well, they say necessity is the mother of invention, but at the end of the day, I've always felt that the messages that I was attempting to teach were pure, that they were unassailable, they were unarguable, they were the right things. I didn't have to change my core beliefs. What I had to change was how it was delivered and whatnot. Okay, because at the end of the day, it's about getting results. Okay, so the way I want to do it, the way that's most comfortable for me, if that doesn't achieve results, and then it needs to change. And so it doesn't matter. We all have to adapt. I mean, we're all sitting here today. You're having this thing because most of us are quarantined because of COVID-19. If this weren't happening, if we weren't in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic and quarantined all over the country, we're probably not doing this today. So we're all adjusting, adapting all the time. And I think that's an important thing. Coaches always have to adapt. Human beings always have to adapt. Players have to adapt. If Jeremy's doing something and the pucks are going into the net, well, he better change it so that the pucks don't go into the net. He better adapt or he doesn't move on. So we're all in the same boat that way, just like we're in the COVID-19 boat right now. And so, it's important. And it doesn't matter what your personal philosophy is. What matters is that you can ultimately get results and help the people you care about. Like I care about my kids, my coaches, our program here at the University of Maine. And so how is my behavior helping to show that caring? That's bottom line. And if I need to change it, then I need to change it.
That's great. We have a really good question here for Matt. We talked a lot about today about recovery and rest and understanding workload. And there's a big, concern that all goalie parents have out there about hip injury. And the question is, what do you recommend for, a younger youth athlete to make sure that they preserve their hips and have a long-term healthy career?
That's a very personal question for me. I had a lot of hip injuries my post-college career. And kind of looking back on it now, I think my younger playing days, I think a lot of the issues that I ran into and I think younger kids run into is just the amount of volume that they're playing. I mean, I know sometimes it's inevitable. I used to referee hockey games where you're doing 7, 8, 9 games on a weekend, right? I mean, that's just how the world is with hockey. And I think it's just balancing that with off-ice training, right? I think a lot of the issues that I see in younger kids that are coming up through the system is, they want to train because there's so much knowledge and information out there, and they see professional hockey players training and doing it certain ways, and which is great. I think it's awesome that these pro athletes are inspiring these young kids. But the kids have to realize that they're still developing from a physical standpoint as well. So just, enjoy the off season and the big things we recommend. I still recommend that for our collegiate athletes. I know a lot of these guys are skating in the summer. I know they have pro camps and they need to do it. But if I can recommend as much time away from the ice as possible in the summer, it's something too that I think is going to help not only just their hips, but just that mentality when they come back on the ice. And, that's something I preach to our athletes all the time, where I want you hungry mentally when you're coming back. I want you feeling fresh. I don't want you feeling beat up. I don't want anything lingering from past season. And I think smart training plays a huge part of that too. And understanding that you can train very smart during the season while you're playing a lot of games. But just listening to your body and understanding, hey, it's okay to take a day off, or hey, it's okay. I played 2 games in 3 days and I have a scheduled training session today. Hey, maybe I'm going to go do yoga or go do a regen session or something like that. So it's just listening to your body and understanding that it's a long-term process and it just doesn't happen overnight.
That's great. Got a question here for both Alfie and Jeremy. I'd like to hear both of your perspectives on this. Billy asks, Robin Leonard recently said in an interview that he feels like this generation of goalie and goalie coaches have become so overly technical that it's too predictable and it's hurting the game. What have you two done to balance that technically right versus just stop it mentality with your goalie? And so I guess, Alfie, I'd ask you first, you're recently coming out of a playing careers and, so you're really drawn to that. And how have you adapted that? And Jeremy, after he answers, how have you felt through that process after working under Alfie for these 3 years?
Yeah. So for me, at the end of the day, it's about getting in the flight path of the puck. As I said before, I got 3 goalies at University of Maine. They're all built different. They're all different heights, different abilities. We're just trying to work on those abilities. In Jeremy's case, he's athletic. We just stay on point with his skating, and there's got to be technical aspects to the game. You got to go back to your foundation and stuff. But for him and I, we talk things through. Obviously, being an ex-player, I share my experiences of why we maybe would be technical in certain situations. But at the end of the day, we talk about it all the time. It's not rocket science. We try to break it down to the simplest skill possible. Skating, T-push, shuffle, all those kind of things. And at the end of the day, if he's stopping the puck, he's making sure that our head coach can go home and not fret about our goaltender. That's my job as a goalie, is trying to make sure that Sway is on point, as well as Thiessen, as well as Mundinger on point, so Red can go home and enjoy a dinner and not worry about his goalies. And I'm probably a little loose that way. I was a very technical goalie when I played. I had to be at 5'10". Everything had to be very detailed. But with Sway, his big body, honestly, I love the fact that he's athletic, and I try to make sure we keep that in him. There's times we just tell him to go play 3-puck or play rebounders. That's his goalie session. Is Sway, just go play rebounders today. I want to work on that. No, just go play rebounders. Go play hockey. Have fun with it. He's getting his work. He's working on his athleticism. He's working on rebound control, all this stuff. But we try to keep it, like Matt said, you're trying to keep it mentally, just trying to keep it light too at times. The season, it's a long season. You still got to have fun doing it. As I told you before, I was the straight, narrow, very laser focused guy, and I had to do it. But honestly, I think back, I was drained after a practice. I was, after a game, I was a guy after a game, I can eat my post game meal and I can go shut her down and be out until tomorrow. And this guy's learned to do it in a way where he's always having fun at the game. He's always having fun in practice. Guys, I'm sure you've seen pictures out there. He's winking to a camera during a game, in between whistles. But that's what works for him. And long as he's coming and he's bringing it every day, we're okay with that. And he's having fun. He's entertaining. A lot of these young kids are looking up to him, and and that's what it's all about.
And Sway, how was that for you with that coaching style, allowing you that freedom to develop?
I think the greatest thing Alfie did for me, I think our first conversation was, I'm not going to change you as a goalie. I'm just going to help you perfect certain things that you can work on. And I took that and ran with it. And you too, I work with you tons, Steve. And, I was very fortunate to have 2 goalie coaches like that. But, you both just said, I'm not going to change your style. We're not going to get technical. You're going to play your game because, this is why you're doing it. This is how you've gotten to where you've gotten because, of your own fundamentals. And there's gotten to a point where obviously I'm still learning tons. Like I'm not, near where I want to be. And so I just take everything and soak everything in like a sponge. And, if I don't like something, I'll be honest with Alf. I said, Alf, I don't want to do that. I don't want to, do an RVH in this. And he said, Sway, it doesn't matter, man. Stop the puck and feel comfortable doing it. And so that's what's been so beneficial for me, is not having that goalie coach that's been, it's either this way or the highway. And I think that works, to do information, and I'm willing to try different stuff. The thing too, Alf always said, Sway, why not try something? And there's so much hockey. I've obviously started watching a ton of hockey too, and just learning from different goalies is something that I'll always do now because of what he's taught me in that aspect of things. And there's always something to learn, no matter how good you think you are something, no matter how good your strength is. There's always something to improve on, and that's just my mindset on things. And it always has been, but really definitely took a turn for the better in this last 3 years.
You bring up an interesting point that we hear about often, just with goalies in general, and that's that balance between having multiple goalie coaches in your corner. And obviously that can be a huge strength to have more mentors, right? And but there's also a lot of times that goalie coaches let their ego almost take precedent over the athlete's development. And like you said, kind of say, like, listen to me, don't listen to that guy, he's an idiot, stuff like that. And that can really be detrimental to your goalies. And we had Peter Aubry on last week, and it was really cool to hear him talk about stress levels of goaltending and how he really feels that his job as a goaltending coach is to alleviate all the stress necessary. There's already enough to stress about, and why on earth would we as coaches add more stress to that player's plate? And I would imagine it could certainly be stressful to be a young goalie, or a goalie in general, having two different coaches in your ear with differing ways to play the position that are both very steadfast as this is the way to do things. So that's pretty neat to bring up for all those coaches listening out there. Another question we have here for Red. Red, having time with the New Jersey Devils and Jacques Demers, Martin Brodeur, two people that are, hugely storied in goaltending in the history of hockey. What were your two biggest takeaways being able to work in that organization with those storied goaltending developers and goaltenders?
Well, Jacques Demers was the head coach. Jacques Caron was a goalie coach, and of course Marty Brodeur. I learned a long time ago when I was a young coach. If you want to win, get off the bus with the best players, and Marty Brodeur is obviously one of the best of all time. And Jacques Caron used to. There are a couple of things that come to mind right away. When I was with the big club, I spent 11 years with the Devils, but I spent only 3 with the big team in New Jersey. But while I was there, Marty Brodeur used to work on his skating all the time. Jacques Caron was big on skating. Jacques Caron used to say goaltending is, the 4 S's. He used to say, S number 1, see the puck. S number 2, skate to the next place you need to get to. S number 3, get set for the shot. And S number 4 was make the save. But Marty Brodeur used to skate the referee's crease at center ice as opposed to the goalie crease, because obviously that was a lot bigger. So he would work on his lateral pushes using those markings on the ice. We hadn't gotten to the point at that time where we do what Coach Alfie does now, bring out a can of spray paint, so we can mark up the ice at the day's practice. So he used to do that. And the other thing Jacques Caron and Marty used to do all the time, after every game, Jacques and Marty would go over the scoring chances against. And so they would basically go through all of Marty Brodeur's touches. And they did it religiously, whether Marty pitched a shutout or maybe, he had a bad game or didn't play as well as he certainly would have liked to. And while I was with the Devils, like every goalie, I saw Marty have some nights where he wasn't at his best. But during my time there, I never saw Martin Brodeur ever have 2 stinkers in a row. We're really rather remarkable that way. And his goalie coach, Jacques Caron, was a big part of that, in my humble opinion.
And just to add something to that, Red, about not having two stinkers in a row, Jacques would always harp on, no, don't get scored on twice in a row. So that was the refocus that you always had to have. You get scored on, and it was the refocus that Marty had to have, and all those great goalies there. So
I don't think there's any question about it. One of the things Jacques used to say at practice all the time, sometimes the practice isn't designed for the goalie, and the shots are coming pretty quick during the course of a practice. One guy comes down and shoots, and the goalie doesn't have time to track the rebound and then come back and get set for the next shooter. And Jacques used to tell Marty and Chris Terreri, who played there during that period of time, hey, you don't have to stop every shot in practice, but decide which ones you're going to play like a game. So when the drill isn't designed for you and has you and what you need in mind, then you have to adjust your thinking and when you actually bear down. And that was an interesting thing that I learned from Jacques Caron, truly one of the great goalie coaches that I've ever been around in 41 years, truly. Not as good as Alf, but pretty darn good.
And for those listening that don't know Dave Caruso, who's our manager of the coaching education program, how many years were you with that program, Dave?
I played for them for 5 years and coached with them for 2. So still talk to Jacques regularly, and he's a really great mentor and really just knows his stuff, and makes you feel good about playing goalie, and just, builds that relationship with all his players, and no matter where they are. There's still a lot of coaches and players that just call him throughout the year that are currently still in the NHL. He's a pretty special guy.
So sounds a little bit like Grant Stanbrook too, doesn't it?
To have them on the next webinar, that would be unbelievable. We'd have to have a 5-hour webinar with them.
With the two of them, you don't need any goalies or any other goalie coaches. You just ask one question and let them go.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a very common theme. We've had so many excellent coaches on here over the last month, and that's been the one consistency, no matter what their role was in hockey, that relationship piece, like building that connection with your athlete. And it almost seems like, the technical and tactical side that we all love so much and get so drawn up in, that's really such a small piece of this whole game of developing athletes. Well, I know we're running short on time here. So Jeremy, I just would like to ask if you had any advice for any young goalies coming up. We have had a few questions in the chat here from some of our younger athletes in regards to, what they need to do to get a scholarship, or, what college is looking for, and, how could they one day become the next Jeremy Swayman, and just any advice you have through the times that you've gone through your careers thus far.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just battling and setting goals for yourself. I know that I had to take a step back and not I guess just I set a lot of goals, and I was focused on those goals rather than the moment, what I'm saying? But it was important for me to set those goals at an early age, and to constantly push and never give up, and just battle for myself, really, because there's competition out there, but the greatest competition is yourself. And if you're not going to push yourself, and you're not going to instill work habits that are going to get you to the next level, then it's going to be tough, and I've been fortunate again, to have great mentors and great role models in my life. But at the same time, I seeked, other people that have done it before me. And, I definitely asked a ton of questions, and that's the biggest thing, is because, I think a great quote is, a smart man learns from others' mistakes. A wise man does it. Oh wait, now I forgot the quote. Look at this. All right. But anyway, but it's all right. That's my tidbit of advice. But it's just important to battle for yourself, and not take no for an answer necessarily, and give no doubt to others watching.
That's great. I love the quote too. That was spot on.
I'll get it back.
But just one story I don't even know if I've shared with everybody on the call yet, but just to Red and Matt and Alfie, all of your credit. I was on a hike with Jeremy last summer prior to going into this year that he had. And he's talking about, he wants to be the best goalie in Hockey East. He wants to sign after this season. He wants to have an excellent year. And so we're on this probably hour-long hike, and I keep thinking that, the questions are probably going to be tactical. They're going to be technical. They're going to be about how do I stop more pucks next year so I get, better stats. And all he asked about was how do I become a better mentor for the freshman goalie coming in? And I thought that was so cool that the culture that you guys have created has a high-profile goalie not asking about stopping pucks, but saying, how do I become a better teammate so that when I leave Maine, it's in good hands? And I just really appreciate you guys for creating that culture.
Well, I think that's a tribute to Jeremy. When he played his last game as a Black Bear, and we weren't thinking it was going to be his last game. It turned out to be senior night. We were home at the Alphon Arena, and Jeremy pitched a shutout. We beat Providence 1-0. We got a goal roughly midway through the third period, and Jeremy obviously shut the door down the stretch, and he was on a bit of a streak. I think he had 3 shutouts over his last 5 games. So, the media comes by and they're asking Jeremy to talk about himself. And what he said was, hey, I just wanted to win this game for the seniors because it was going to be their last home game potentially at the Alphon Arena, which is a magnificent place to play college hockey, as everyone knows. And, you may be saying, you credit us with that, but, education is a two-way street. So we may teach that stuff, but the players are responsible for learning it. And learning means how you behave. You know what I mean? It's not what you say you're going to do. Learning means what you do. So that's a credit to Jeremy. It's a credit to Alfie, who's done most of the work here, but mostly to him. And so I've said too much here today. This should have been a show about Jeremy Swayman, and I've had a lot to say. So I'm going to shut her down for good. No more questions for me.
That's great. Well, we're out of time today, but guys, thank you. This was an excellent episode, and congratulations to all of you, but specifically Jeremy, congratulations on your successful college career. And we're really excited to all watch you as you take that next step into the pro ranks with the Boston Bruins.
Thanks, Tomer.
Dave, take it away.
I just want to thank Coach Gendron, Coach Murray, Coach Michaud, and Jeremy. Great job. Really, their story and just everything about the relationship and building that development team. Jeremy, good luck next year with the Bruins. So I think that's going to be an exciting time for you in Providence or Boston, or just make the team out of camp. That's all you got to do, right? So,
yeah, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, and just want to thank everybody for watching USA Hockey webinar series presented by Pure Hockey and BioSteel. Tomorrow we have the gold medal winning goalies from the 1980 men's, 2018 women's teams, and the 2014 and 2018 sled team. So really great day with Steve Thompson back on as well. So we'll see everybody tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. On YouTube or on Zoom. So everybody have a great day, and I really appreciate everybody watching.